Hey, how are you? I'm going to be reading from this Leadership Theory and Practice book by Northouse. I'm in chapter 5 on page 98. How does the situational approach work? The situational approach is constructed around the idea that followers move forward and backward along the developmental continuum, which represents the relative competence and commitment of followers. For leaders to be effective, it is essential that they determine where followers are on the developmental continuum and adapt their leadership styles to directly match their followers' development levels. In a given situation, the first task for a leader is to determine the nature of the situation. Questions such as following must be addressed. What goal are followers being asked to achieve? How complex is the goal? Are the followers sufficiently skilled to accomplish the goal? Do they have the desire to complete the job once they start it? Answers to these questions will help leaders to identify correctly the specific development level at which their followers are functioning. For example, new followers who are very excited but lack understanding of job requirements would be identified as D1 level followers. Conversely, seasoned followers with proven abilities and great devotion to an organization would be identified as functioning at the D4 level. Having identified the correct developmental level, the second task for the leader is to adapt his or her style to the prescribed leadership style represented in the SL2 model. There is one-to-one relationship between the developmental level of followers, D1, D2, etc., and the leadership style, S1, S2, etc. For example, if followers are at the first level of development, D1, the leader needs to adopt a high directive, low supportive leadership style, S1 or directing. If followers are more advanced and at the second development level, D2, the leader needs to adopt a high directive, high supportive leadership style, S2 or coaching. For each level of development, there is a specific style of leadership that the leader should adopt. An example of this would be Renee Martinez, who owns a house painting business. Renee specializes in restoration of old homes and over 30 years has acquired extensive knowledge of the specialized abilities required including understanding old construction, painting materials and techniques, plaster repair, carpentry, and window glazing. Renee has 3 employees. Ashley, who has worked for him for 7 years and whom he trained from the beginning of her career. Levi, who's worked for a commercial painter for 4 years before being hired by Renee 2 years ago. And Anton, who is just starting out. Because of Ashley's years of experience and training, Renee would classify her as primarily D3. She's very confident, but still seeks Renee's insight on some tasks. She's completely comfortable prepping surfaces for painting and directing the others, but has some reluctance to taking on jobs that involve carpentry. Depending on the work he assigns, Renee moves between S3 supporting and S4 delegating leadership behaviors. When it comes to painting, Levi is a developed follower needing little direction or support from Renee, but Levi has to be trained in many other aspects of home restoration, making him a D1 or D2 in those skills. Levi is a quick learner, and Renee finds he only needs to be shown or told how to do something once before he is able to complete it easily. In most situations, Renee uses an S2 coaching leadership behavior with Levi. If the goal is more complicated and requires detailed training, Renee moves back into the S1 directing behavior with Levi. Anton is completely new to this field, developing his skills but at the D1 level. What he lacks in experience, he more than makes up for in energy. He is always willing to jump in and do whatever he's asked to do. He is not as careful as he needs to be, however, often neglecting the proper prepping techniques and cleanup about which Renee is a stickler. Renee finds that not only he, but also Ashley uses S1 directing behavior with Anton. Because Levi is also fairly new, he finds it difficult to be directive with Anton, but likes to give him help when he seems unsure of himself, falling into the S3 supporting behavior. This example illustrates how followers can move back and forth along the developmental continuum, requiring leaders to be flexible in their leadership behavior. Followers may move from one developmental level to another rather quickly over a short period, over a day or a week, or more slowly on goals that proceed over much longer periods of time, over a month. Leaders cannot use the same style in all contexts. Rather, they need to adapt their style to followers in their unique situation. Unlike the trait approach, which emphasizes that leaders have a fixed style, the situational approach demands that leaders demonstrate a high degree of flexibility. With growing cross-sectional, cross-cultural, and technical influences on our society, it appears that the need for leaders to be flexible in their leadership style is increasingly important. Recent studies have examined situational leadership in different culture and workplace contexts. In a study of situational leadership in air traffic control employees, Arvidsson and Johek assessed leaders in different contexts and found that the leadership style should change in different groups and individual situations. In addition, they found that the most frequently used leadership style was high supportive, low directive, and most seldom used style was high directive, low supportive. In another study, Larson and Vinsberg in 2010, using a case study approach, found that successful leaders use a relation orientation as a base, but include along with it a structure orientation and a change orientation. Interesting. So that's page 98 through 100. That's how does the situational approach work in chapter 5. Very interesting.